Hello, myself Ram Krishna here. Basically, we are discussing one of the topic that is city creation. In this, basically, we are discussing the future creation. Basically, so one of the person asked the question. Basically, Sunil, are you there in future? And few software company basically, few my friends basically asked the question. Basically, भाई सुनील तो है सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी में. He basically literally asked the question basically. So that is basically especially for those group basically who told that basically, Sunil, are you there in future basically, and are you there in software company? So that is for that group basically. So one of the person told that vitamin A basically contains how many bomb blast basically is going to happen basically. That basically is decided by the vitamin A basically. You can just imagine basically the thing basically. You can just imagine basically. Vitamin C basically contains city will end, city will get newly city basically is going to create. Vitamin D basically contains prime minister will die, president will die, prime minister will not die, president will not die. So you can just imagine basically the doctors know each and everything that when prime minister is going to die. You can just imagine basically. And India basically, who is the doctor basically? That is AIMS oxygen basically. AIMS is the basically AIMS basically, that is the Delhi AIMS basically. You can just imagine basically. Lots of people say that ये डॉक्टर लोग कौन है यार basically. See basically AIMS all India basically. So this basically groups basically I'm taking just as an example basically. In really basically whatever things in front of the world basically, that is not basically that basically we have already discussed lots of time basically. So here in front of the world is that India is basically AIMS basically. So whenever basically things very any serious basically happens to the political people basically, they basically are shifted to the AIMS basically. They are shifted to the AIMS. So one of the person told that doctors basically knows that basically the future basically. Doctors basically knows the future basically. Then he told that yes, yeah basically. They know the future basically. That when basically the prime minister is going to die. Until basically he exists, basically. Until basically he exists. And ex prime minister also basically they only calculates the things basically. That means doctor basically decides. In simple language basically the public only basically decides. Public blood cells decide that basically, and that blood cells basically are collected by the AIMS group basically. They decide that what basically public is telling basically. They are telling that basically the prime minister should die, or basically they are telling that prime minister is not supposed to die. So this everything basically very dangerous basically. It's basically very dangerous, and this connects to the not only the AIMS basically, it connects to the whole world Indian nationality basically. So that whole world Indian nationality, and they takes the decision that, for example, assume that basically in Singapore basically lots of basically Indian died basically due to some reason basically. Assume that basically some reason due to lots of Singapore basically, in Singapore basically lots of Indian people basically died. So they their blood cells basically they died basically. So to know basically what is basically their thinking basically about the prime minister basically of the India basically. So they introduced one fruit basically in Singapore basically. That fruit basically is like this basically, asking the question basically, should prime minister die, should prime minister not die basically. Because in Singapore basically lots of people basically died due to some reason basically. Due to some reason basically people died. Due to some reason basically people basically died. So he told that yes basically, due to some reason basically the people basically died. Due to some reason basically the people died. You can just imagine basically, due to some reason the people died. So Singapore taken the decision basically that 70% people told that basically Prime Minister must die. 30% told that basically that's okay, basically it was not his mistake basically. So the data basically collected by the AIMS was 70% told that basically he should die basically. So like this basically they takes the survey every month basically that Prime Minister should die, Prime Minister not die basically. For that basically they specially creates the fruits basically that Prime Minister should die or basically Prime Minister is not supposed to die. So you can just imagine basically the dangerous thing basically. And one of the person told that basically which type of this type of fruits basically who sells basically. In which mall basically this type of fruits basically are selling basically. And one of the person told that if you search basically in internet basically Dawn Mafia basically the cyber industry basically just pick your collar basically and tell that why basically you are basically search Dawn Mafia basically. Then basically they are supposed to watch this video basically. That basically we are just nothing basically doing here basically. We are just searching the Dawn Mafia group basically in internet basically, and basically you are basically pick upping the caller basically that basically why you search the Dawn Mafia basically keyword basically. अरे बाबा ये just see ना basically this video you see basically cyber group basically cyber industry group basically see this video basically. They must watch this video basically. I am 100% entire cyber industry must watch this video basically. That doctors basically decides that Prime Minister must die or Prime Minister must not die basically. He is not supposed to die, he is supposed to die. And that basically are decided by the public blood cells. One example I have taken, that is of Singapore basically. So one of the person told that yes, yeah, it's very dangerous basically, very, very, very dangerous. It's not so easy basically. It's not so easy. So one of the person told that yes, yeah, basically, it's not so easy basically to become the prime minister also. Lots of people says that भाई ये तो देश का प्रधानमंत्री बन चुके हैं अभी तो जल्द से. But it's not so easy basically. Anytime basically he basically the doctors basically might take the decision that prime minister have to die basically. Because they have to listen the public basically. Otherwise basically if they are not listening the public, then basically the energy which is getting created across the world and of Indian nationality basically, that is going to affect very badly, and in that basically lots of disease basically might convert, and immediately basically the satellite group basically will connect to AIMS group basically, that basically not AIMS group basically the Indian doctor group basically, they will say that basically why you have not done this. They will be going to ask this question only basically, and then basically they will take the action basically that why you have not done this basically. So that's very dangerous basically to become the Pradhan Mantri. One of the person told that basically it's correct basically. So now basically we will connect to this thing basically, that is one other person told that basically सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी कितने हैं इंडिया में. Then he told that this is the software companies basically. See basically this is the software companies. This basically. And here basically Sunil Nair basically somebody asked that basically, Sunil, are you there in future of the software industry basically? Are you there in Microsoft? Are you there in SAP? Are you there in PHP? Are you there in Python? Are you there in C++? Are you there in COBOL? Just taking as an example, basically real he basically is not like that. Just taking as an example, just was question was this simple basically, are you there in future basically of software industry? So that basically that group basically must watch this video basically. So then basically the Supreme Court group basically, the Supreme Court basically group basically say that basically we have to take the decision basically, because the blood cells has generated that prime minister have to die. The Supreme Court basically takes the decision prime minister have to die basically. So you can just imagine basically the Supreme Court basically, lots of people says that भाई कानून है, कानून का दरवाजा खटखटाओ. So in next video basically we are going to see that.